right, so we started out with the retrogrades to kind of give you an idea of what the planets are like when they're in retrograde. And then I was like, we're gonna do this a little bit backwards. Then I'm gonna teach you about all the deities associated with the planets, or the fact that the planets themselves are deities, right? Um, and so, yeah, I made notes. I'll just go off those. We've got the sun, also known as Helio, Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, right? Romans made an annual sacrifice to Sol, as did the Mayans, and they believed he died on December 21st, winter solstice, right? And was reborn 3 days later. Sound familiar? Yeah, the story of the sun is told in various yet similar stories throughout like various cultures all over human history, right? During the days that he's dead, they're actually the shortest and darkest days of the year, right? And so that's where that kind of comes in. It's almost like they feel like an absence of his presence, right? He rode in on a 4-horse chariot, right? Also sound familiar, the four horsemen, whatever. So a lot of these deities have inspired a lot of biblical stories, right? And the more we dig into the deities, the more you're going to see the correlations and be like, oh, so that's where it came from, and that's why it got fucked up, and da 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 da. In astrology, the sun energy represents consciousness, individuality, self expression, leadership, confidence, creativity, masculinity. It takes 1 month for the sun to travel throughout each zodiac, right? The sun illuminates your ego and your character, right? So if you're more in your ego, that will be illuminated by the sun. If you're more in your like higher self, like then that will also be illuminated. The moon, goddess Luna or Selene. She's the goddess of intuition. She controls the tides on Earth after she deposited the waters onto Earth when she collided with the Earth during the formation of the Earth after the Big Bang. Anything that carries water within itself or is life because of water, right? They become affected by the lunar cycles, right? We see that with women on their periods. We see, moods. We talk about this shit all the time. In astrology, the moon represents habits, intuition, behaviors, the subconscious, memories, and feminine energy, right? Then we have, and I find it kind of funny because I feel like lunar energy can be a lot more destructive than solar energy in some seasons, when the tides are affected and we get tsunamis and stuff. The sun is a little bit predictable at this point, and so, it's a lot, what's the word? It makes sense that, like, even though the sun is fire, it's like warm and comforting, right? Everyone feels happier when the sun is out. When it's night and we can see the moon, that's typically when people's fears are illuminated, right? That's when the things, it's like the time of the shadow, right? And this is when we use our intuition to guide us, right? Because you don't have necessarily a whole lot of light to guide you at night, so you go off of intuition a lot. Anyway, carrying on, and we have Mercury, the messenger, god of merchants. This is all about resourcefulness, communication, luck, traveling, mischief, thievery. Mercury guides the souls to the underworld, right? So, in astrology, Mercury is the planet of the mind, right? He represents intelligence, communication, technology, information, ideas, business, education, and legal matters. Very like air energy, I would say, if we're talking in terms of tarot. And I will also get to the point where I start talking about the planets and their association with the zodiacs, as well as like the houses and everything. I'm just doing this in segments because it's easier to compartmentalize instead of trying to fit it all into one video. Um, then we have Venus, right? Also known as Aphrodite, the planet or goddess of love and beauty, attraction, profit, harmony, relationships, art, pleasure. She's the hedonistic goddess, right? She affects your emotions and your physical appearance. She's the one, like, she can make us vain, right? Or she can make us self conscious. She really has a lot to do with ego. I'd say probably even more so than the sun, because she's the one that really helps us tap into the ego, which is not really a bad thing. We have an ego for a reason, right? Nothing's good or bad in these energies, right? And I think that's something that we need to recognize. It's not about good and bad, right? It's just about the entire spectrum of energy. Then we have Mars, the god of war and action. He's the guardian of agriculture, and when I think of Mars, I think of that quote from The Art of War when he says, "It's better to be a warrior in the garden than to be a gardener in war," right? And so I feel that heavy energy, and when you think about like the samurai and like things like that, how they were like gardeners, right? Or they were farmers and shit, and then they used their own land while they were training. Like they used the tools that they had at their disposal for training. The White Lotus also, and it's like, I feel that Mars, has a heavy hand in regards to those matters. Mars represents masculinity, passion, desire, aggression, sex, courage, conflict, and competition, right? All the things that you would like, all the energies of like Game of Thrones. I almost said Game of War. Game of Thrones is gonna be like that Mars energy, right? The lust, the passion, the fighting, the da da da. It's all crazy, chaotic. But that's what Mars specializes in. Then we have Jupiter, also known as Jove, god of the sky and thunder, king of the gods. The energy of Jupiter is expansion. He's all about luck, optimism, hopefulness, vision, wisdom, influence, and prosperity. Jupiter and Saturn both protect the Earth because they're so large, right? And they act as like shields against any like comets and space debris. Also, they have a larger like gravitational pull. So when debris is flying at the Earth, if they're in proximity, that debris is like kind of pulled into their orbit, and like it like basically pulls it away from like collision, right? So yeah, Jupiter and Saturn are considered, like the guardian angels of the garden, if you will, right? If we consider Earth as an entire garden, right? Which it kind of fucking is. But anyway, where am I? Then let's talk about Saturn, right? Saturn's the god of time, generations, disillusion, abundance, wealth, agriculture, renewal, and liberation, right? Saturn's reign was known as the golden age of abundance and peace, right? Saturn really brings about a lot of like harvest, or you're going to be feeling a lot more resourceful in the energy of Saturn, right? I would say this is that magician energy if we're talking in terms of tarot. In astrology, Saturn affects your karma, your strength, your perseverance, discipline, restriction, law, authority, life lessons, obstacles, and traditions, right? Saturn is kind of the one of structure, right? He's gonna try to like organize everything, try to make sure everything's in order, right? That's why Saturn is like the balancing act, right? When Saturn reigns, it's gonna be a good fucking day usually. Um, Uranus is a primordial god known as heaven, right? And I think if you watched my previous video on astrology, we did talk about that. And how I was like, it's kind of funny that the Romans have this god named Heaven, which happens to be a planet, and they always talked about, going to heaven when they died. They could have literally been talking about a planet that they named Heaven, right? Like, I find it very ironic and very hilarious. I'm like, how has nobody put this correlation together? But whatever. Basically, when Gaia, or Earth, hooked up with Uranus, they became the parents to the Titans. Ironically and grossly enough, but also, like, planets are different than humans, Gaia is the mother to Uranus, also. So there's that. There's like, within these ancient gods, we learn about why incest was so, but it also was like a thing of like royalty back then, right? Keeping things, So, I mean, I feel like it's partially that too. It talks about their royal positions as deities, right? Um, so Uranus is a revolutionary planet, very Aquarian energy. It carries the energy of change, freedom, rebellion, individuality, chaos, humanitarianism, activism, progress, and invention, right? Basically, like, it's Uranus doesn't deal with bullshit, right? If Uranus feels like there's injustice or there's unfairness, then Uranus is going to step in and be like, oh, no, we ain't playing that game, right? Everyone gets a hand at this table, right? Neptune, the god of the sea, brother to Pluto and Jupiter. They affect spirituality, imagination, innovation, visions, dreams, creativity, mysticism, illusion, deception, and escapism. So Neptune is like kind of in charge of a lot of things. If you think the energy of water, right, this is kind of how I would perceive like Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio energies, all kind of tied into this Neptune energy. And they all have strengths in different in various like Neptune energies, right? Because Neptune shows up with a lot of energies, right? And like, where the Cancers may be more prone towards like the mysticism and the visions, the dreams, the escapism, and then we've got like the Scorpios who really harness their skill set and, well, same with, I would say, even Pisces, but with discernment, being able to see when people are being, deceptive or creating illusions, right? You're able to see that through that pretty well under those energies. But yeah, so like very like watery energy. Pluto is actually probably the most Scorpio one of them all, to be honest, right? He's god of the dead, lord of the underworld, right? When we think about Scorpio in tarot, then we would, and that's not to say that, this planet's ruled by this energy. I'm saying that that's the energy I feel when I'm like connecting with the planets, and I'm like, all right, that's fucking Scorpio, right? Scorpio is represented by the death card. It's all about, and which is great because Pluto is kind of in charge of like dishing out karma and like, so it's like it could be good luck, it could be consequences, but that's basically what Pluto's in charge of, right? Same with like the death card, it could be a positive like death, it could be, a rebirth situation. But that's basically Pluto. He's the god of rebirth, transformation, destruction, power, regeneration, and the subconscious. He's like in charge of reincarnation, right? When hold on, I have to go back on my notes for a second because yeah, so when Mercury, sorry, I was like, which planet was it? I wrote all these notes and I'm like already, but yeah, when Mercury delivers the dead to Pluto, then Pluto is in charge of determining their fate for their next life, right? This is where the dishing out karma comes from, right? He decides, all right, so based on their last life and all that, we're going to put them in this situation, or we're going to rebirth them here. They're going to, He's in charge of the rebirth, situation here. He's in charge of regenerating you and I want to say repower instead of empower, because it's not like you're being empowered by him, but it's like you're being powered up, in a different kind of way. And I find him to be like, even though he's a dwarf planet, right? And I feel like that's almost like metaphorical as well, because so many people are like, Pluto's not even a planet. He is. Okay, jerks. That's my father. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, but also Pluto, or Hades, right? Like in the lore, he was oftentimes kind of like outcasted by the other gods, right? Similar to like the planetary thing. Because they're like, all the other gods and goddesses are all in charge of like, oh, creation and abundance and, whatever, prosperity, and then, and even war and stuff. And then Pluto shows up and he's like, I'm here to transform some energy, right? I'm here to like transmute some energy. I would say like gods that are in a similar alignment with Hades would be like Pan, Loki, Thoth the Atlantean. These are all different deities that are all like kind of in charge of that transmutation process, right? So Hades is not actually like a bad guy. He's fierce as fuck. He's dangerous as fuck, right? But he's not a bad guy. He has a divine purpose. And we talk about divine purpose a lot in my readings and things like that. And sometimes people's divine purpose are kind of for different things, right? Some people are creators, some people are artists, some people work on demolition crews and they get a thrill out of destruction, some people are boxers and they love violence, and everybody serves a different purpose, right? And it's like the same with the planets. Everyone has a different energy. They're all there to do a different thing. That's why there's room for all of them, I would say basically the the energy of these like planetary movements too, and how we react or respond to it is in direct correlation to our relationship to Gaia, right? We're literally like the fleas in her pubes. So Gaia is the mother of all, right, on Earth. She is the Garden of Eden, the entirety of it, right? And Eden got corrupted, but this is it. I like to show the origin of different stories through like kind of letting you see where some of these stories even come from, or because Kabbalion mysticism is quite a bit different from like a typical like, and I don't want to say typical, but like somebody who practices Judaism is, there's some that are very into the Kabbalah and, and they're like, we're doing it this way. And then there's some that are very like Orthodox and they're more into the organized, like almost Christian like version of Judaism. I myself, as a Jew, I have a lot of connection to the Kabbalah. As you can tell, I'm a fucking mystic through and through. But yeah, and so there's a lot of I feel like misrepresentation of the various ways that Judaism or can go. But anyway, on another track, Gaia, the holy mother of all creation, the divine goddess. She is the goddess in the sky, right? And the funny thing about it is that we live on top of her, so we don't really see her for that, right? We don't really recognize it in the same way that we probably would if we were larger and had a more perspective on it, right? The interesting thing about Gaia is she was created in the void called chaos, right? And I love that, because going back to the Pluto thing, where he's kind of like a chaotic force of transforming energy. Gaia is, she's all about creation and abundance and prosperity, and she's also about balance. It's funny, in Good Omens, this book that I need to read on my other channel that I've been reading by myself, it's based on there's a show based off of the book, and I watched the show first, and in the beginning of the show, it talks about the Earth being a Libra, and I was like, and I hope that's true, because if you really think about the energy of Earth, that it's very Libra, right? It's creation and destruction, right? She is the love child of matter and antimatter during the Big Bang, right? She's a primordial goddess as well. And so being the daughter of destruction and chaos, being birthed in the womb of being the daughter of chaos and creation, right? She was birthed in the womb of chaos, right? And that's where she kind of falls into alignment here. And that's why everything that comes from Earth, right? Anything that grows out of Earth has the same kind of energy within them. We have the shadow, we've got the light, we've got, and I feel like there's, a reason for that. We need to have both. We need to have the ego, we need to have the humility, we have to have the integrity as well, so if we tap into our real energy that comes from the earth, then it helps us to find our balance, right? Going back to the Libra, right? Libra is represented by the Justice card in tarot, right? It's all about balancing the scales, and that's exactly what Gaia is about. When shit starts getting whack on Earth, she'll balance that shit out real quick. She'll smack you around. And so basically, like I said previously when we were talking about Uranus, she's the mother of Uranus. Also, her and Uranus hooked up, and then they became the parents to the Titans. So that's kind of weird, but it is what it is. They're planets. They're not like us. So, take it as it resonates. Take it and go. But yeah, that's pretty much what I have for you right now. On my next one, I want to go a little deeper into the zodiacs, and I want to talk about, which zodiacs are ruled by which planets, and then that will help you to understand the energy of the zodiacs and why you'll see different traits and trends between the different zodiac signs, And yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit later. And also, one thing I would like to mention is, though the planets are the gods that travel around, we have to also think about how powerful must those stars be, right? For each constellation to give off a certain kind of energy when a planet is in that constellation. It's intriguing, and if we think about our own star, the sun, it's this giant ball of destructive yet creative energy, right? And it's like, I feel the same if you know, these are all just stars, they're all suns, you know, and when the energy of these planets move towards those constellations, that's when they really they they have a transference of energy, right? Or like an absorption of energy is probably a better way of putting it. It's like they sit in these constellations and then they really take on the energy of that location. Um, but yes, it's pretty much what I got here. I'm gonna do some readings. We're doing fire signs today. And then, yes. So, namaste. I love you guys, and I'll see you in a bit.